play a very significant role from the beginning to the end, right from the planning stage. And also, during data collection, there is also what we call data quality strategy that we put in place so that we have a very good quality data. So all these are developed by ICT, which include making sure that data collectors are monitored in the field. Apart from that, if you are just keying in wrong information, so we have what we call checks embedded in the program so that we can monitor the quality of data that data collectors are collecting in the field.
For any data that MBS is putting out there, we ensure that the quality is guaranteed because the methodology and the approach is following the best international standards and practices.
Data collection isn't always easy. Sometimes, field workers are faced with difficulties while trying to collect data. As insecurity continues to ravage parts of Nigeria, collecting data in such areas has become almost impossible.
So the safety of our staff is paramount. We don't risk their life for any data collection activity. What we do is we have field officers in all the states of the Federation who are very familiar with the terrain in their state. So before our interviewer goes out on daily basis to conduct any interview, they go for ground truthing to find out what is the situation, security situation in those communities where they want to go and work. So even before going out at all, they make that inquiry. If it is safe, they go there.
First of all, coming here was not that safe for us, but as we've come, due to the way they've received us, we feel secure and we feel happy, and we started exercising our duty here.
In the South-South, field workers face some challenges getting to enumeration areas, which were riverine communities. To reach such areas, they had to rely on locally made means of transportation, as these are the only options available.
80% of our terrain is riverine area, so we don't have much land when it comes to the EA. So the challenge we are actually having here is the terrain. And like where we went to yesterday, you can see if we did not shatter that boat, we would have gone at their own time. And by the time you get there, maybe it's in the evening, and they could not be able to walk. They have to wait the following day. And if they after finishing the job, if there is no boat, they have to sleep again. So the terrain is our major challenge. So if other states are using 1 day to do some job, we might end up using 3 days because of the means of transportation, which is a challenge for us.
We've been here for close to a month, about a month now. We've been to several communities. So this is one of the last communities around the riverine areas.
Beyond this community, we went to Age, which is like the end of Ekeremo. There is the high sea, salt water. This where we are is fresh water. Salt water is about 2 hours on boat to get to that community. But while going there, our boat almost capsized. The boat driver had to manage and maneuver so we're stable on the water because of the wave, because of the high sea. So those are the challenges we faced there. The same hard to reach community.
Some respondents have been very difficult to interact with. There are places you go to, some of them you say, all these on our federal government programs, them, I beg, just go. But some of them we just have to sit them, we educate them the nature of the program. We tell them the need for them to involve themselves in it. So some of them we end up convincing them, while some persons refuse. So those ones that refuse, we leave them.
With the Nigerian government pledge to lift 100 million people out of poverty by 2030, the results from the Multidimensional Poverty Index survey will be a useful tool to achieving and measuring policies put in place to achieve this goal and the Sustainable Development Goals.
The COVID-19 indeed brought about a lot of let me say, damages on the nation's economy, so that a lot of things could not function as they should. And as a result of that, the level of poverty eventually increased. And so through the conduct of the MPI survey, we'll be able to come up with information that will tell us who are those that are multidimensionally deprived, and then from there, government will be able to come up with policies that will help her to achieve the vision of bringing out 100 million Nigerians out of poverty.
I always believe that if you are not planning for your future, you are planning to fail. Planning for the multidimensional index is a good one, and especially when it comes in the areas of health, education, the living standard, and employment. It gives us a lot of edge for us to plan very well for our state, especially the kind of issues we have on ground, the insecurity that has bedeviled the state for the past 10 years or so. Planning is very important. If we get the correct data, the statistics of what is going on, we'll be able to plan very well.
You see, Maiduguri, that is the Borno state, actually has suffered very extremely in regard to insurgency in the state, and which has led the people of the state out of their own means of livelihood. And as a result of that, it has led to very acute poverty to the populace, that is the people of Borno state. When the result of this survey is out, it will help the state very well in the fact that it will be as a pointer, which will show where it is very acute. For instance, MPI in this state, in the headquarters now, it will measure, but the acuteness of that particular poverty will be in the rural areas where they will not be able to go and farm, because so many of them were being killed on the farm as a result of this insurgency. So MPI will definitely do well to the state in that regard.
The impact of MPI survey in Oyo State can be that after analyzing the data, we will have that opportunity to disaggregate the outcome into local government and wards. And it will afford us the opportunity to, advise the state government on policies and programs to address the issue of poverty in the state.
It is quite interesting to actually hear people publish and say, pass on information, say Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. There's an adage that says, in God we trust, every other person bring data. And that is what the MPI is trying to prove. The MPI is the measurement that is used to address SDG 1, end poverty in all of its forms.
You don't step out, you will not know the reality of what citizens of a given nation faces. That's why statistics does not lie.
That as much as possible for us to develop as a nation, we actually need to adopt the attitude of using statistics in decision-making process.
After the finalization of the data analysis and the report of MPI is going to be published on NBS website, which is www.nigerianstat.gov.ng. So some other, maybe few hard copies will also be printed, which you can find in the NBS data shop.
It is hoped that the results from this survey, when put to good use, would help evaluate government policies put in place to eradicate poverty across the country.
So I will encourage government, I will encourage policymakers, I will encourage users of statistics to please make sure that the data that we made available to the general public are put into proper use so that Nigeria as a country will develop from the council level to the national level. And indeed, it is only through the application of robust and reliable statistics that as a nation we can truly develop.
The incidence of poverty in Nigeria continues to be a challenge to address. Amid an abundance of resources, millions of citizens still live in poverty, while many are close to falling into the poverty bracket due to persistent socioeconomic challenges, recently exacerbated by the low global oil prices in the last few years and the COVID-19 pandemic. The Global Multidimensional Poverty Index was developed in the year 2010 by the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative at the University of Oxford and the Human Development Office of the United Nations Development Programme, or the flagship of the Human Development Report. The MPI is an internationally comparable measure of acute poverty covering over 100 developing countries and 5.7 billion people.
The Multidimensional Poverty Index obviously began as an academic document, but it was motivated with James Foster, the co-author, by a desire to have a useful measure. And already in 2009, Mexico launched its official MPI, followed in 2010 by Bhutan, the country between India and China, then in 2011 by Colombia. And now OFI are the secretariat of a network of 61 countries that either have official MPIs or are building them. And so many countries have found that alongside their monetary poverty statistic, it's useful to have a second overall poverty measure, the MPI. And it complements, it's a sister measure, and it brings other aspects of poverty into view.
Nigeria developed her own MPI in 2014 and 2017 under the Human Development Index framework, with dimensions focused on health, education, living standards, and labor. The National Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria, in collaboration with the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, with support from development partners such as UNICEF, UNDP, and OPHI, conducted the MPI survey in Nigeria in 2021 across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT.
The MPI survey is very important because it provides a comprehensive overview of the level of poverty in Nigeria in different dimensions. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to come up with comprehensive and reliable data for informed decision-making process for Nigeria to be able to come out or pursue the fight against poverty.
Work that we do around poverty needs to be aligned very strongly with the NSR. The NSR being the National Social Register that coordinates, that puts together all the repository on data on poverty in Nigeria, especially around household.
The latest poverty report released by MBS will indicate some huge poverty numbers, including the poverty line being further driven down. Globally, it was $1.9. Now for Nigeria, that has reduced to less than 50 cents as our poverty line. It's alarming. And so a survey like this is usually important for our country to be able to begin to gauge very, very in specific terms those levels of deprivations across all sectors, to be able to not only properly plan but allocate resources in a way and manner that we're tackling the issues and challenges head on. When you take the MPI survey results and the levels of deprivation and you hit it against the social register. So while the survey speaks generally to the issues, right, of deprivations, we'll deal with the poverty database of the individuals. So if you take those levels of deprivations and you're able to triangulate on the data that we have, you're able to actually say in what numbers exactly these people are deprived. So the social register, it's an information gateway of all potential eligible beneficiaries to any social intervention. So that means it's a collection of all poor people that have been identified through the targeting mechanism into the register.
As the name of the department goes, Field Services and Methodology, we coordinate all statistical activities, right from the headquarters to the zones and to the 36 states of the Federation. In every survey, our major role as a department is to ensure that we come up with the methodology and the survey design to conduct all surveys, irrespective of the size of the survey.
Training was done in each of the states with the state officers overseeing what happens in their particular states. We also saw that competent trainers were sent to each of the states, and which the training was properly executed. I, as the zonal coordinator, on a regular basis ensure that in all the states simultaneously the activity is going on unhindered. And in terms of supervision, we ensure also that there is no part of the state where there is laxity. So structurally, we ensure that the mandates given to each of the states are being carried out in each state.
Before you go to the field, after the training had taken place, after the selection of the enumerators had been done, then the next stage is to go to the field. Now, but you don't just go to the field. Normally, the state officer, at the state level, the state officer is going to write letters, correspondence to local government, Ministry for Local Government Affairs, intimating them that they'll be having some data collectors who will be visiting different enumeration areas at the local government level. Then the Ministry for Local Government Affairs also will disseminate this information to their various local governments in anticipation of the coming or the arrival of these enumerators. Apart from that, the state officer is required to write a letter to each local government as well as the interviewers or the enumerators visit those local governments. Then at the local governments, they are not supposed to only visit the local government and start the exercise immediately. No, another letter is given to visit the district sets or the mianguas, and that what we call the local authorities, so that they'll be able to have a very smooth atmosphere in order to conduct their exercise. There are many reasons why we do this. Number one, to secure or to ensure or to guarantee the security of the field personnel. Now again, to enable the field personnel have access to the respondents without any hitches along the line. And again, for these local authorities to be carried along so that they'll be able to own this information that we are intending to collect. Again, to collaborate or to support or to complement what government is also doing by sensitizing their people to give the maximum cooperation that is required.
The field work is going to last for 42 days, and by 27th of December this month, they will be rounding up the survey, and it's expected each team is to return back to the office, and data must have been sent to the field. They synchronize immediately, they collect the data in the field.
The instrument for the data collection is digitalized because we are no more using paper form or analog form of data collection. So the questionnaire are to be digitalized. put in a device that can be used for digital data collection. So it is the role of ICT to develop this and also deploy it on the device to be used by field officers. CAPI simply means computer assisted personal interviewing.
So in the team, we have the team lead or the supervisor, so to say. We have 2 interviewers and we have 1 measurer.
My role as a team leader is to coordinate the survey in my team, to coordinate the activities of my other team members, teammates carrying out the survey. Another role is to assist the measurer in carrying out the anthropometric measurement. I am also to assist them in locating the enumeration areas, introducing them to the community head, identifying weak enumerators, and then training them in the job while the job is going on.
My role as a measurer is to take anthropometric measurement of 2 eligible under 5 children between the ages of 0 to 59 months in an household, and 2 eligible adults between the ages of 18 to 59 years in an household.
The main role as an interviewer is to identify the household we are going to interview. Then we identify the person that meets the characteristics of those that we are supposed to interview. Then we seek their content and interview those who agree.
First of all, when we come, we'll first of all locate the local government secretariat, communicate with the administration, introduce ourselves. Then from there, they will permit us and at least assist us with one of their members that will lead us to the community head. From there, we introduce ourselves, and he too will also assist us with one of his community member that will help us to locate the EA that we are assigned to work in.
What we are doing is they have already done the listing of the household, and we ask about the source of the main drinking water. Then we ask questions about security. We ask questions about the federal government cash transfer, maybe either they hear or they received. Then their main job, the past 1 month or 7 or 1 week. Then we ask about COVID-19 vaccine.
The measurer has a separate training, anthropometry. So the best out of them was chosen as our measurer, and we divided across the teams.
We want to take height measurement of children that are not up to 2 years old. Basically, we take height measurement of children that are not up to 2 years old while lying down. So most times they don't want to lie down. When they are lying down, they are scared of wanting, maybe sometimes they are scared, maybe they want to take injection. So we try to calm them down. Before the start of our work for each day, we make sure that I take calibration on our scale and the weighing board before we proceed into taking any form of measurement. When we are taking weight measurements of 2-year-old children, most of them can't stand on the weighing scale by themselves. So after trying to make them stand on the weighing scale, they start crying, so we don't get accurate results. So at the end, we make use of the 2-in-1 method, whereby the mother stands or the caregiver stands on the weighing scale. We're able to take their measurement.
In National Bureau of Statistics, that is our watchword, quality. We don't substitute that for anything else, because it's all about data. It's for planning purposes.
ICT play a very significant role from the beginning to the end, right from the planning stage. And also during data collection, there is also what we call data quality strategy that we put in place so that we have a very good quality data. So all these are developed by ICT, which include making sure that data collectors are monitored in the field. Apart from that, if you are just keying in a wrong information, so we have what we call checks embedded in the program so that we can monitor the quality of data that data collectors are collecting in the field.
For any data that MBS is putting out there, we ensure that the quality is guaranteed because the methodology and the approach is following the best international standards and practices.
Data collection isn't always easy. Sometimes, field workers are faced with difficulties while trying to collect data. As insecurity continues to ravage parts of Nigeria, collecting data in such areas has become almost impossible.
So the safety of our staff is paramount. We don't risk their life for any data collection activity. What we do is we have field officers in all the states of the Federation who are very familiar with the terrain in their state. So before our interviewer goes out on daily basis to conduct any interview, they go for ground truthing to find out what is the situation, security situation in those communities where they want to go and work. So even before going out at all, they make that inquiry. If it is safe, they go there.
First of all, coming here was not that safe for us, but as we've come, due to the way they've received us, we feel secure and we feel happy, and we started exercising our duty here.
In the South-South, field workers faced some challenges getting to enumeration areas, which were riverine communities. To reach such areas, they had to rely on locally made means of transportation, as these are the only options available.
80% of our terrain is riverine area. So we don't have much land when it comes to the EA. So the challenge we are actually having here is the terrain. And like where we went to yesterday, you can see if we did not shatter that boat, we would have gone at their own time. And by the time you get there, maybe it's in the evening, and they could not be able to walk. They have to wait the following day. And if they after finishing the job, if there is no boat, they have to sleep again. So the terrain is our major challenge. So if other states are using 1 day to do some job, we might end up using 3 days because of the means of transportation, which is a challenge for us.
We've been here for close to a month, about a month now. We've been to several communities. So this is one of the last communities around the riverine areas.
Beyond this community, we went to Age, which is like the end of Ekeremo. There is the high sea, salt water. This where we are is fresh water. Salt water is about 2 hours on boat to get to that community. But while going there, our boat almost capsized. The boat driver had to manage and maneuver so we're stable on the water because of the wave, because of the high sea. So those are the challenges we faced there. The same had to reach community.
Some respondents have been very difficult to interact with. There are places you go to, some of them you say, all this on our federal government programs, them, I beg, just go. But some of them we just have to sit them, we educate them the nature of the program. We tell them the need for them to involve themselves in it. So some of them we end up convincing them, while some persons refuse. So those ones that refuse, we leave them.
With the Nigerian government pledge to lift 100 million people out of poverty by 2030, the results from the Multidimensional Poverty Index survey will be a useful tool to achieving and measuring policies put in place to achieve this goal and the Sustainable Development Goals.
The COVID-19 indeed brought about a lot of, damages on the nation's economy, so that a lot of things could not function as they should. And as a result of that, the level of poverty eventually increased. And so through the conduct of the MPI survey, we'll be able to come up with information that would tell us who are those that are multidimensionally deprived And then from there, government will be able to come up with policies that will help her to achieve the vision of bringing out 100 million Nigerians out of poverty.
I always believe that if you are not planning for your future, you are planning to fail. Planning for the multidimensional index is a good one, and especially when it comes in the areas of health, education, the living standard and employment. It gives us a lot of edge for us to plan very well for our state, especially the kind of issues we have on ground, the insecurity that has bedeviled the state for the past 10 years or so. Planning is very important. If we get the correct data, the statistics of what is going on, we'll be able to plan very well.
You see, Maiduguri, that is the Borno state, actually has suffered very extremely in regard to insurgency in the state, and which has led the people of the state out of their own means of livelihood. And as a result of that, it has led to very acute poverty to the populace, that is the people of Borno state. When the result of this survey is out, it will help the state very well in the fact that it will be as a pointer, which will show where it is very acute. For instance, MPI in this state, in the headquarters now, it will measure, but the acuteness of that particular poverty will be in the rural areas where they will not be able to go and farm, because so many of them were being killed on the farm as a result of this insurgency. So MPI will definitely do well to the state in that regard.
The impact of MPI survey in Oyo State can be that after analyzing the data, we will have that opportunity to disaggregate the outcome into local government and wards. And it will afford us the opportunity to, advise the state government on policies and programs to address the issue of poverty in the state.
It is quite interesting to actually hear people publish and say, pass on information, say Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. There's an adage that says, in God we trust, every other person bring data.
While we remain in this position, can we together recite the national prayers? O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youths the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and live just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reign. Amen. Please be seated. Your Excellency, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, ably represented this morning by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. The Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Ade Ikpaye. Honorable Ministers here present, the Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Finance, Prince Clem Agba, the Chairman Governing Board, NBS, Dr. Kabiru Nakaura, the Statistician General, Prince Adeyemi Adeniro, Permanent Secretaries here present, Special Senior Advisors to the President. I have seen the Senior Special Advisor on Social Investment, Hajia Mariam Owais. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, powerfully led this morning. We have the United Nations Resident Coordinator, Matthias Shimale, the UNDP Resident Representative, UNICEF Country Representative, the Canadian High Commissioner, Your Excellency James Christophe, the Deputy High Commissioners here present, European Union Head of Delegates, ably represented by Cecil Tassin Pelzi, Oxford University Consulting, who have led the findings that we are all witnessing this morning, led by Jacob Calvin Tauda. We also have from the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency, the Deputy Ambassador to Qatar Embassy here in Nigeria, Ahmed Al-Olhar. We have also with us chief executives and directors of all the states' Office of Statistics. So we have the statisticians here with us. We also have the national coordinator of the MPI, Shola Folayon. I know that some permanent secretaries are here. I also have a lead discussant also from the African Development Bank, Anthony Simpaza. A whole list here. But most importantly, because what we're doing is ensuring that the public knows what is happening today. So I'd like to greet you, members of the Diplomatic Corps, development partners, my colleagues, the members of the Nigerian media, from all the states of the Federation that have gathered here. I say a very warm welcome to you. Can you please put your hands together for yourself? And because what we are doing this morning is very, very bold, ensuring that we know where we are as a person, where we are as a people when we talk to poverty and all the indicators associated with it. And I just noticed something. Now, I don't know if you noticed that with me. It's a whole lot of reality here. Representative of Mr. President is a prince. The minister in charge of this is a prince. And I'm a princess too. So, so give me a very loud round of applause. Yes. I'd like to, yes. Okay. All right. Instructions will come, but I think for me today, when we have a sober reflection on the fact that close to 90 million Nigerians live in extreme poverty, according to the World Bank, less than $1.9 per day. That very dismal, that very, it just takes you to think of why we need to be here today. And I'm happy to be part of history because this started in 2021 and is made public today. And this is telling us that we need to plan to work. We need to remove the poverty line. But in doing so, we need at least to have some statistics that will guide us. So on behalf of the Honorable Minister of State and, of course, Federal Government of Nigeria and development partners that have worked to give us what we are going to watch today, I'd like to welcome all of us here. And to do that, I'd like to quickly call on the Statistician General of the Federation, Prince Adeyemi Adeniro. I told you royalty is up here today. So welcome with me the country Statistician General of the Federation, Prince Adiniro.
I wanted to say that the MC didn't remember to say that I'm a prince too. The President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, ably represented here today by our erudite Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, eminent Nigerian. The Chief of Staff to the President, Dr. Ade Ipaye, the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, my boss, Prince Clem Ikanade Agba, the Chairman Governing Board of the National Bureau of Statistics, Dr. Kabiru Nakaura, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, Matthias Schmeier, Ambassador to the Republic of Qatar and High Commissioner for Canada, European Union Deputy Head of Delegate in Nigeria, the Statistician General of State Bureau of Statistics here present, all members of the Directorate of the National Bureau of Statistics, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. For the want of time, let me stand on the existing protocol, please. My duty is to welcome everybody to this very epoch-making occasion. And I want to say that I'm extremely excited to welcome everyone present here today for the launch of the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey results. This is truly a special moment for the National Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria, and by extension, the entire national statistical system in the country. Why am I glad? It is not just for the fact that His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Chief of Staff, is here today with us for the launching of our survey results, but because this is the first time ever that we are conducting a stand-alone multidimensional poverty index survey in Nigeria. This survey is also disaggregated to the senatorial district level. Given the enormity of the task, the challenges and difficulties encountered in the process of doing this work, and the dedication of those that are employed in completing the survey, I think the MBS, the relevant MDAs that supported us, the State Bureau of Statistics, and all our agencies, development partners like the NASCO, UNDP, UNICEF, OFI, that supported the National Bureau of Statistics in completing this work, all deserve a round of applause. The whole concept of multidimensional poverty and its use for measuring poverty has grown and developed significantly over the past 10 years. Since the launch of the Global Index in 2010, several countries across the world, and more recently in Africa, have adopted it as one of the official measures for assessing poverty in their countries. This is mainly because of the uniqueness of the MPI in highlighting the dimensions and areas in which people suffer deprivations. Its usefulness in targeting and allocating resources to address poverty is of immense importance. In 2018, the National Bureau of Statistics produced the first MPI measure. By that time, it was a subset of the Human Development Index computed by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. However, in 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we commenced plan to conduct the first ever standalone MPI survey in Nigeria. And this was eventually implemented in the year 2021/2022, and it is the result of this effort that we are here today to launch the results. The Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey is arguably one of the largest surveys to be undertaken by MBS, with the largest sample size of 56,610 households that we selected across 109 senatorial districts in 36 states and federal capital of the Federation. Unlike the global MPI, which many countries adopted, which uses 3 dimensions of health, education, and living standard, we in Nigeria added a 4th dimension to this global one, which we call work and shocks. This 4th dimension, as well as the indicator under it, such as food security, water reliability, underemployment, security shocks, and school lag, they were added to reflect the current realities and priorities of Nigeria. The survey also has a link to the child MPI. The UNICEF is interested to hear that we are also going to be computing child MPI from the Multidimensional Poverty Index, apart from using the mix. This child MPI also include appropriate indicators for children under the age of 5 years by adding a 5th dimension of child survival and development. This additional dimension for child MPI contains 8 vital aspects of early childhood development in physical and cognitive domains, including severe undernutrition, immunization, intellectual stimulating activities, and preschool activities. The child MPI uncovers additional children who, according to the extra dimension that we have added, should qualify as multidimensionally poor. For the avoidance of doubt, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, MBS computes and uses both the monetary and multidimensional measure of poverty. The approach of each of them is different, so the results should not be seen as contradictory, but rather complementary to each other. While the monetary measurement of poverty makes use of consumption expenditure as a means of determining the level of poverty, the MPI approach uses deprivation in basic amenities as a means of determining the level of poverty. Both measures, however, are needed to present a more holistic picture of poverty in the country and better inform policies that are intended to address the needs and deprivation faced by poor population in Nigeria. Your Excellency, the representative of the Mr. President, this report, therefore, provides an updated estimate on the population of people who are multidimensionally poor, in addition to being in monetary poverty. The fact that the incidence of monetary poverty is lower than the incidence of multidimensional poverty across most states implies that the Nigeria MPI 2022 is making us to identify part of the population who are not identified as poor by the National Monetary Measure. This provides a clearer picture of poverty in Nigeria and contributes to informing a more comprehensive policy response. The concept of poverty as a multidimensional phenomenon is fundamental to the 2030 agenda of SDG. As we all know, SDG Goal 1, which is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere, explicitly include a target on reducing multidimensional poverty. SDG target 1.2 states that by 2030, all countries should reduce at least by half the proportion of men, women, and children of all ages living in poverty in all its dimensions according to the national definitions. Some of us here will recall that the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, OSAP, on the 25th of August this year, launched the report of the independent evaluation of SDG 3 and 4, which provides information on the progress made by Nigeria towards the attainment of health and education goals. Similarly, this report will be used to track the progress of the SDGs in Nigeria. Finally, it is my hope that the launch of these results, and indeed, as is being expected, all the deliberations to follow, both within this hall and across the country, will all lead to the design and implementation of policies and programs that will positively impact on the life of Nigeria. More importantly, it will lead to the realization of the government of President Muhammad Buhari mandate to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. Let me especially thank the federal government of Nigeria under the able leadership of our President, President Muhammad Buhari, our two supervisory ministers, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Dr. Zainab Samsuna Ahmed, and the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Agba, for their unflinching support to the National Bureau of Statistics in all our survey activities. Once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome all of you here present today for this event to launch the result of the MPI 2022, and I wish all of us a fruitful deliberation. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Statistician General of the Federation, Prince Adeyemi Adeniro. We are witnessing, of course, the launch of the 2022 Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index, which he has spoke boldly to. And I like the fact that you can actually categorize this as it affects the group of the cluster of people that are so impoverished. We're moving on and we're going to be having some remarks. But before then, I'd also like to introduce that we have with us the former Chief Economist and Chief Executive of the National Planning Commission, who is also member, Presidential Economic Advisory Council, Professor Ode Ojo. Sir, you are welcome. He was here much earlier this morning, so it's nice to know that you're still around. Thank you for all the good work. I'd also like to say that for all that are coming, we welcome you. We will not waste too much time. Yes, okay. Not waste too much time on identifying and introductions, if you'll permit me. I'll take a final one here quickly. Thank you. Yes, I have, okay. I have to be seen, right? Okay, I'll try. I think we have representative of the Honorable Minister of Labor and Employment, very important, Senator Dr. Chris Ngige, represented by the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Employment and Job Creation. Madam, you're welcome. Thank you very much. We now have some goodwill messages. Please don't worry about my height. I think I would shout so that my voice can be heard, because going back and forth here is not that easy for this morning. However, I'll attempt to make sure that you see me. We're going to start from all the development partners that have assisted in bringing this report to fore. I'd like to call on the representative of the European Union to please kick off this series of goodwill messages. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Your Excellency, Chief of Staff, Ambassador Gambari, Honorable Federal Minister of State of Budget and National Planning, the Statistician General of the Federation, the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations, the High Commissioner of Canada, Other distinguished federal and state officials and representatives of Nigeria, of the diplomatic corps, and of United Nations agencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here today in support to the federal government of Nigeria to launch the 2022 National Multidimensional Poverty Index. This new report, which includes relevant additional indicators, is providing extremely useful insights into the challenges faced by Nigerians in their everyday life and needs. The new MPI will greatly help contribute to the eradication of extreme poverty in Nigeria by providing data and informing actions and projects tackling poverty. The European Union is proud to have financially contributing to this MPI through the UN. This event itself is a mark of the crucial role data plays, particularly for evidence-based decision-making, enabling Nigeria to meet the 2030 target of total eradication of extreme poverty. As we all well know, data are key to define the most appropriate and relevant interventions. The MPI has proven its use in the past in helping governments throughout the world formulate their policies, especially as regards the way to address poverty. In Nigeria, and given the current crisis, the MPI 2022 will certainly help government at all levels, as well as development partners that we are, to allocate funds to benefit all those in need and develop the necessary support services. The EU appreciates that the government of Nigeria, at its highest level, takes a keen interest in the MPI, and that President Buhari himself promoted it during the UN General Assembly in September. The European Union delegation in Nigeria supports the government of Nigeria in its efforts to reduce poverty and better target those that need it most. As part of our multi-annual indicative program for 21 to 27, which is aligned on the National Development Plan of Nigeria, human development is a key priority. We have, for instance, recently designed a specific program focusing on access to education for girls in rural and underserved communities, and another program on social protection. This is in line with the findings of the MPI, which shows again this year that women and people in rural areas are still overrepresented amongst the poorest in Nigeria. We will continue to work together with the government of Nigeria to try to reduce these gaps, and the data gathered will be most useful to these efforts. Let me also take this opportunity to praise our excellent working relationship with the Minister of State of Budget and Planning, Prince Clem. To conclude, I would like to congratulate once again the government of Nigeria and all stakeholders, most particularly the UNDP, for this new milestone and a great work done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. From the European Union, we'll move the train quickly to the Canadian High Commissioner. I'd like to invite His Excellency James Christophe to please give us his goodwill message.
Chief of Staff, Ambassador Gambari, Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations, Representative of the European Union, Statistician General of the Federation, other distinguished federal and state officials and representatives of Nigeria, the Diplomatic Corps, and other United Nations representatives. Good morning. Let me say how honored I am to join this event in support of the federal government of Nigeria to launch the National Multidimensional Poverty Index. This report provides key insights into household-level challenges Nigerians face in meeting their basic needs. The MPI also holds the potential to be a key metric of SDG 1 towards eradicating extreme poverty and generating the data to inform actions towards meeting the SDG 1 targets. This gathering this morning is a testament to the importance placed on data and evidence found in the report, and will, of course, inform key decisions for Nigeria to meet the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to eradicate extreme poverty for all by 2030. Canada is also committed to the achievement of the SDGs in Nigeria and around the world. And this is also reflected in the role of our Prime Minister as an SDG advocate. I wish to express Canada's deep appreciation for the joint efforts of multiple stakeholders to produce an extensive countrywide measurement of multidimensional poverty in Nigeria, specifically the National Bureau of Statistics, the Vice President and his office, the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, UNICEF, UNDP, the EU delegation, and the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom. I wish to also congratulate His Excellency President Buhari for the role in the successful high-level side event to the United Nations General Assembly in September to help raise the profile of the MPI amongst other countries. On the aspect of securing well-being for all, this report is instrumental in the collection of data that highlights the urgent needs of children. The evidence generated by Nigeria's national MPI is set to be used as both a measurement and a policy tool for different sectors, ministries, programs, and levels of government, which is an essential step towards an integrated response to poverty reduction. Another essential step to responding to poverty is to integrate a gender perspective into data collection. Based on what has been highlighted in the report and what we already know about gender disparities in Nigeria, there is an opportunity to undertake a deeper analysis of the state level to better understand the disproportionate burden of poverty on women and girls, and to more effectively direct resources and design programs to address this. Canada believes that targeting gender inequality is fundamental to addressing the root causes of poverty. Is the reason why we support initiatives like the MPI, fostering, enabling ecosystems for women and girls to be empowered and reach their full potential so that they can earn their own livelihoods, which will ultimately benefit families as well as the economic growth of their communities in Nigeria. Once again, congratulations on the launch of the report, and I thank you for your attention this morning. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. I like the line that addresses gender equality. Only yesterday, we at a meeting, the true face and the perception of poverty looks very much like a woman. So in driving poverty and nailing poverty, then women amongst the most vulnerable should also be given the special needs that would eliminate and put back that nomenclature of feminization of the woman. Thank you, Your Excellency. Well, at this point, I'd like to invite one of course, our partners for another remark, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, Matthias Shamali. Thank you so much. Please, can we welcome them very warmly? Thank you very much.
Good morning, and asking you to allow me to stand on already established protocol. Let me nevertheless recognize two eminent leaders of government that we in the UN and I personally respect a lot. His Excellency the Chief of Staff representing the President, and His Excellency the Minister of State, Prince Clem. Now, it's my understanding that what we're doing here today started back in 2019 when your government, through the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development at the time, announced the adoption of the global poverty measurement methodology, the result of which we're seeing today. So the first thing I should do really is to commend the government, through you, Your Excellency Chief of Staff, for not just making a commitment in New York, but for having followed up and for the completion of the 2022 National MPI Survey and resultant report. Now, allow me to share very quickly what stood out for me in the findings of the report, because I think that's what, of course, we should be guided by. According to this year's MPI, 63% of people, 133 million Nigerians, are multidimensionally poor, i.e., being deprived in more than one dimension of the four measured. Multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas, where 72% of people are poor compared to urban areas, where it's 42%. And Prince Clem, you so often remind us to invest into rural areas and agriculture. This report gives some credence to your demands. Gender disparity, we've already heard about, continues to affect the overall population, with 1 in 7 poor people living in a household in which a man has completed primary school, but the woman hasn't done so. And then 2/3 of children, 67% of children aged 0 to 17 are poor, according to this report. And 83.5% of children are poor, according to the linked child MPI, which adds the indicators for the age group 0 to 4. Now, finally, at an aggregate level, it's my understanding that 65% of the poor, 86 million people, live in the north, while 35%, nearly 47, in the south. But we need to look at this beyond that general statistic. It's very clear that if you break it down to the state, if not the district level, there are pockets all over the country, pockets of poverty, and we need to adjust accordingly. So 2 key messages on behalf of the UN that we take away from this for our work in supporting government. The first one, as just noted, poverty is a nationwide problem in Nigeria, but its nature is different in different parts of the country. So intervention should really be tailored to the deprivation profile of each state, if not lower, making them, our interventions of support, efficient and of higher impact. And then secondly, child poverty is an urgent priority. 2/3 of children are multidimensionally poor, according to the national MPI. And this rises further to 83.5% when, as I mentioned, you consider the linked child MPI. Allow me, Your Excellency, Chief of Staff, to recall that when I was recently in New York for a meeting of resident coordinators with the Secretary General, he told us our top priority has to be to assist the governments we're working with to rescue the development agenda. And he said the top priority within that is education. So of course I had to think about that when I heard or read how children are affected in this country. We all know that 20 million children are out of school. So we really, as UN, will try to prioritize supporting the government in getting learning for all children going in and out of school, and of course especially the poor. In closing, let me thank a few others beyond the government for supporting this impressive work. There are, of course, the partners, Canada, the EU, and others. I commend my colleagues in UNDP and UNICEF for the work they've done. I commend the NBS, NASCO, and the OPHI for their efforts and technical expertise. Chief of Staff, this is undoubtedly a significant aspect of your government's legacy, and we hope very much that the next government will use the findings and recommendations to further drive catalytic policy decisions that impact the poor people of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, please. Another round of applause. And the reality of poverty index, particularly moved by, as it affects children, And I like the fact that intervention must be peculiar to the needs wherever we move around in the country, trying to alleviate poverty. We are moving on now for more remarks. I'd like now to call on the representative of the resident representative of the UNDP. Right, that's double representation. Shall we please welcome him warmly?
His Excellency President of the Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Honorable Minister of State Budget and National Planning, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors of Canada and the European Union, Statistician General Prince Adeyemi, United Nations Resident Representative Matthias, Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As UNDP, I am very much delighted to hear that, to be here, this important event, to launch the MPI report and deliver remark on behalf of the United Nations Development Program. Today, we present Nigeria's most extensive multidimensional poverty index survey report. The successful completion of the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index report is a significant milestone in our effort to design policies to lift 100 million people out of poverty and help Nigeria to deliver on its commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. I want to congratulate every person, agency, and parastatal involved in this project from kickoff till this moment. I also want to especially express our gratitude to the Global Affairs Canada and the European Union for their generous financial support to undertake this initiative through the Basket Fund. As we are gathered here today, it is important we remember that the MPI report will serve as an important tool for providing better understanding of the needs of the state and their communities to proffer suitable solutions. While we celebrate, however, how far we have come, we must endeavor to hit the ground running with the best way to utilize the rich data. The data that makes up this report will guide and fine-tune the works of the government, the United Nations, and other development partners in achieving Agenda 2013. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to know that the MPI report is the first of many steps to drive catalytic action toward this poverty reduction. Therefore, international leadership, commitment, and action-driven use of the MPI data will help in achieving poverty reduction. For UNDP, this data gives us a better understanding of the needs of the Nigerian in terms of their extent of poverty, where they live, and under what condition in order to create development programs suitable to the solution, guide the coordination of multi-sectoral policies, target vulnerable groups and poorest households, evaluate policies and guiding budget allocation to support the presidential initiative of lifting 100 million people out of poverty, which is also strategic focus for UNDP by 2030. While extending our hands of support and friendship to the government, both federal and state level, I invite our key partners to join hand in hand in this journey and make it a success. Once again, congratulations to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now invite UNICEF. Let's hear your voice, especially after that statistics we got about children. Please welcome UNICEF representative.
Good morning. I adhere to the established protocols, but would like to greatly thank, on behalf of UNICEF, the Excellency Chief of Staff of the Presidency of the Republic, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Excellency Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Agba, the Statistician General of the Federation, of Prince Semu Adenari, and Chair Adeniran, and Chairman of the National Bureau of Statistics, Dr. Kabiru Nakura. Good morning. Apologies for the pronunciation. I come from Latin America, so sometimes it's a little bit challenging. It is really a pleasure to be here this morning with this distinguished company to share some perspectives on the multidimensional poverty index that is being launched today. Let me start, as I said, appreciating the government of Nigeria for honoring the commitment it made at the UN General Assembly in 2019 to conduct a comprehensive and nationwide survey to understand the country's true story, the country's true face of poverty. The aim was to use the findings of this important survey to shape programs and policies and, of course, to reach results. If we consider the burden of deprivations, the deepening macroeconomic challenges, the enduring impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the pressure of climate change induced poverty on many households, we all then agree that the challenges that many families, thousands of families, have never been more greater and graver than ever. So, therefore, it is really important to understand the multi-dimension poverty, and to understand it is critical. Multi-dimension poverty is the understanding that poverty goes beyond an income. It includes the lack of insufficient capability to enjoy life. It includes hunger, malnutrition, limited access to education, poor health care, limited access to other basic services, discrimination, social exclusion, and insufficient participation on decision-making processes. While multidimensional poverty is more encompassing, we need to understand poverty as a phenomenon that is affecting children in different ways, whether it is monetary or multidimensional. So, from UNICEF's perspective, we know that children in Nigeria are facing hardships, and we have to put a human face in poverty. And because this is important, let me share with you the story of Rahama, a 13-year-old girl, and the mother of a 1-year-old child. She was raped by a neighbor who had powerful friends. She was terrified that he would kill her, and if she told anyone what had happened. Her family found out that she was expecting a baby, and they reported the crime to the police. The good thing is that they were encouraged to settle the case and initially had no success. But then a pro bono lawyer took on Rahama's case, and finally the rapist was arrested and sent behind bars. But this is not the end of the story. Rahama wants to return to school and become a lawyer. She's strong, she's resilient. We should not fail her, because we should not fail thousands of girls that are facing huge challenges. Same case to 3 boys in the Northeast who struggle a lot, but today They are GS1 students. And this is the beauty of children and adolescents. They are always positive. They are always willing to go ahead. So us as adults, we should not fail them. And we should have them all as a priority in our different decisions, no matter in what sector, in what area we are working. So I would like to highlight some small points on Chapter 4 of the MPI that is being launched today. We found that child MPI is above 50% in all states and almost 100% in some states. And this is where we need to focus more. There is also a high prevalence of child MPI in rural areas, with almost 90% of experiencing poverty. These figures unveil today that it is urgent to have actions in policies, in practices, and most importantly, in financial commitments. No matter how passionate our intentions are, or how good our programs and policies are, the effective implementation, alongside with increased, efficient, sustainable public investments, remains at the core of fulfilling the rights of children in Nigeria. UNICEF recognizes this and reiterates its commitment to support the national government of Nigeria in its efforts to reduce child poverty. Poverty data should be routinely measured to track and foster accountability in our commitments towards reducing poverty. The UN realizes that its different parts must work together to deliver timely and meaningful supports to governments. And thank you to our resident coordinator who has his challenge in his hands. UNICEF values greatly the partnership with UNDP, with whom we have come together to support this great initiative. And we thank the High Commissioner of Canada and the representative of the EU to come along with these efforts. Let us make this, translate these statistics, these numbers, translate into changes. Let this launch be the start of a movement towards effectively targeted social investments and sustainable solutions that can transform human capital, that can catalyze sustainable growth and provide hope and a better future for each one and all of the children in Nigeria. Thank you.
And may I just add that leaving no one behind, everyone, every strata of the society, it's important because I've been tutored that the poverty has several dimensions. It has the rural and of course the urban, and in addressing it all, leaving no one behind. At this point, would like to take a digital remark from the office of the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, ably represented and who will speak to us shortly by the National Coordinator NSHIP, Dr. Umar Bindir.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister sends her regards and respects to literally everybody, particularly the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and Planning and all her colleagues that are there. I'll very quickly run through her goodwill message to the audience. She said, I'm pleased to observe that the 2022 MPI is coming at a time when the need to re-strategize the national social investments for reducing poverty in our country couldn't be more imperative. Indeed, as you all are aware, this administration is fully committed and has deliberately invested heavily in targeted activities designed to reduce poverty more than ever before. even under a constrained fiscal situation. In the year 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari inherited an economy that was depressed, that was tough, along with the people in dire need for development and a global poverty ranking that was out of sync with even the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2015 and 2016, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari launched two very special and innovative instruments to ensure sustainable social development in our country. First was the review of the National Social Protection Policy that established the minimum guarantees of social safety for Nigerians, on the basis of which the National Social Safety Net Project, NASP, was launched to identify and record all poor and vulnerable households in Nigeria into a National Social Register. Today, I'm happy to report to you that the National Social Register has nearly 13 million households, which is equivalent to over 50 million Nigerians as of September 30th, 2022. Furthermore, through this platform, the administration launched the Rapid Response Register, which is a sub-registry of the National Social Register, specifically launched to address the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on the urban poor informal sector workers. The Rapid Response Register has nearly 7 million individuals registered in it. So using these databases of 5,000 naira monthly to 2 million poor and vulnerable households across the country for about 3 years now running, and to another 1 million urban poor informal sector workers for 6 months respectively under the RRR to cushion the effects of COVID-19. The utility of the two registers as scientific tools for improved and highly coordinated targeting, and also the life-changing impacts of these cash transfers, are highly impressive and impactful nationwide. The second effort by the administration is to launch the National Social Investment Program in 2016, packaged as an additional direct special intervention aimed at addressing the key needs of the poor and vulnerable in Nigeria. All these efforts are specifically designed and targeted at meeting the vision of our President Muhammadu Buhari, to lift at least 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by the year 2030. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Nigerian 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index MPI results features the latest estimates and analysis on multidimensional poverty, providing a closer look at the interlinked deprivations of poor people in Nigeria, while shedding valuable and broad insights on how to effectively plan on tackling poverty in our country. The MPI provides the smart evidences needed to inform targeted poverty reduction strategies and interventions for current and future shocks that could include such experiences as the COVID-19 pandemic and extensive flooding that we have witnessed in the country, as they impact the lives and conditions of our people. While existing data estimates that absolute poverty incidence in Nigeria averages between 40 and 43%, the 2022 MPI result has shown that about 133 million people, representing 63%, live in multidimensional poverty across Nigeria. The results further show that the multidimensional poverty is worst in the rural areas, is higher in northern Nigeria, affects people with disability more, and is generally more evident on women and children. The details of these findings are very critical in the planning, designing, and implementation of special interventions by both the federal and subnational governments, and will further ensure better use of resources for maximized impact. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, the 2022 MPI survey results will, in summary, help Nigeria approach poverty reduction in an effective and coordinated manner towards achieving the SDGs by 2030. With all of these, along with the innovation of our President Muhammadu Buhari, that informed the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in 2019, to serve as the coordinating ministry on poverty eradication in Nigeria, the ministry is motivated and encouraged to have the MPI as a desirable tool for refined policy making, for prioritizing and managing intervention initiatives, and for improved targeting and effective partnership with states and local governments and indeed our international partners. I'm equally encouraged to also learn that of the 20 countries that reduced their MPI value, the fastest globally, 12 are in sub-Saharan Africa, and I trust that Nigeria will soon be on track to join the league of the fastest nations to reducing poverty in all dimensions using this MPI as a baseline and as a tool. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me commend the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative and for this survey. Let me also appreciate the National Bureau of Statistics for conducting the study, and most importantly, the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office in my ministry for its coordinatory role and for keeping the ministry briefed at all times during the process. May I seize this opportunity to commend and appreciate my colleagues, the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and Planning and the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning for believing in this work and for their continuing support in evolving this MPI as a much-needed evidence-based tool for poverty reduction policy making and social development in Nigeria. Finally, let me also seize the opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to His Excellency, Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari, once again, for his patience and belief that we can do this, and that this is the right tool that Nigeria desperately needs to achieve the presidential directive to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by year 2030. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellencies. This is the message of the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll just move on now to the next speaker. Having served as the Chief Economic Advisor to Mr. President, former Chief Executive Officer, National Planning Commission, today member, Presidential Economic Advisory Council, welcome with me, Professor Ode Ojowo.
The President, His Excellency Muhammad Buhari, represented by my senior colleague and mentor of a sort, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. I think I should take the pleasure to let you know that while Ibrahim Gambari is my senior, the Minister of State, National Planning is my junior, and Statistician General, my employee. So I think I want to thank the Statistician General for inviting me to this occasion. I'm very pleased to see the growth of the MBS, what used to be called the FOS. In 2004, when we moved the FOS to Abuja here, the headquarters of the FOS was in 4 different locations in Lagos. Today, with the support of the development partners and the continued support of the federal government, we have a befitting headquarters of the MBS. And it has been working consistently to ensure that data are generated that are useful for national planning. And as I told the SG 2 days ago, when you hear less commendation and muted criticism, it means you are doing well. So congratulations to you. Yes, we're talking about impact of, or lack of it, education, health, work, and shocks. As I stand here, I'm a victim of that shock. I run a 40-hectare farm with 60 people as partners. Out of these 60, 57 of them are women in the rural community. This flooding that has occurred has destroyed more than 90% of our farm. Not only in terms of flooding, but also in terms of excessive water in the soil that destroys yams and tubers. So I'm sure that if this survey had been taken to include this flooding, the figures would have changed. Now, the other point I want to make here is that, yes, poverty is a national problem, but it's more of, as has been said, problem in some parts of the country than others. In relative poverty, for example, Lagos State was only 4.5%, while in other states like Zamfara, virtually everybody, 97%. So this document, yes, it is a legacy document for our government. But my prayer is that it does not remain a legacy document. This is a document describing the conditions of people who are living and dying in this country. So the most effective legacy would be that each of the representatives of the various sectors of the economy and levels of government will take this document home, study it, work out policies, programs, and projects for implementation, so that by the time we meet again like this, we'll be reporting how many people have been escaped from poverty in its various dimensions. That will be the success of this document. I also want to draw attention to the fact that has already been said, that is that, yes, everybody virtually, including all of those who have to pay for electricity and don't have it, we are all poor. But the poverty level, the irony of the poverty in Nigeria is that those who contribute most to national development as measured by their share of the GDP are also the poorest. So the farmers who contribute more than 25% of the GDP also are the poorest and the most vulnerable to poverty in every dimension that you measure it. And of course, their children also. And in the Nigerian case, and probably across the world, the more you are able to raise children, the less you wish to raise. And the less you are able to raise children, the more you wish to raise. And the end result is that large families that cannot support themselves now are victims of poverty. And the so-called 20 million people out of school, there are 20 million people out of school from poor families, not from you and me sitting here. So these are issues that I hope you will take on life and bring to bear what it is that this document represents. A document provided by the MBS as a sounding board for what is happening to the vulnerable Nigerians, none of whom is present in this hall. I thank you very much for inviting me and hope that we are going to continue with this work in a more meaningful edition. Thank you very much.
Very sobering, the account that Prof has given. And when we look at all other indicators, take health for example, we still have high prevalence of maternal and child mortality and morbidity, all showing towards poverty. Let's look at a family that is affected by cancer, for example. No matter how rich you are, treating cancer impoverishes you. And so we have the poverty index growing. My prayer that it will be a working paper to eliminate poverty. We'll move on at this point. I'd like to call on the Oxford Poverty and Development Initiative, who have worked tirelessly with this documentation that we are making public today. Michael, on the representative of OPHI, to please give us a remark. Online. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored to join the launch of the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022. It's been an honor for my team at the University of Oxford, Jacob Dirksen, Rizwan Haq, Maya Evans, Michelle Matchett, to work with such a dedicated, competent, and impassioned team of experts in Nigeria. To give you an idea of the methodology, the Nigeria MPI has 4 dimensions: health, education, and living standards and work controls, and 15 indicators. The 4 dimensions are equally weighted, and by and large, the 15 indicators are equally weighted within their dimensions. Each person who answered the MPI survey was coded as deprived or non-deprived in each of the 15 indicators. The deprivations are added up into a deprivation score that shows the percentage of dimensions in which they are deprived. If it's more than 1/4, 26% and above, they're identified as poor. So when we say that 63% of Nigerians are poor, each poor person is deprived in more than 1/4 of the dimensions. For the child MPI, we roll back to children under the age of 5, and each is assessed as non-deprived or deprived in 8 additional indicators that are key for childhood, like severe undernutrition or cognitive development. And if those children are deprived in more than 1 out of 5 dimensions, 21%, they're poor. The national and child MPIs are linked, so they're in a sense one policy tool that gives consistent messaging about where poverty is the highest: rural, urban, by zone, by state, by senatorial district, by households in which somebody is experiencing a disability. The analysis has gendered and intra-household angles. It looks at child marriage. And not only the level of poverty is shown, but also how people are poor by each of the indicators. So I can look at data for my district and see how people are poor and know what to do. The aim of the Nigeria MPI is to be that kind of a tool for action for new people who don't yet know about it so well. I'm grateful to the unnumbered colleagues whose work, creativity, and patience has and will drive this work forward. I must salute the staff of the National Bureau of Statistics, the Statistician General, Esili Ojo and Grace Weniko, for their leadership in technical terms, and NASCO for aligning MPI with the National Social Registry. Powerful combination. And I must say, I do not know of any other national MPI activity where so many development partners and players in government have engaged so successfully. Above all, I must recognize and admire the dogged leadership of the national coordinator of the MPI, Shola Afolayan, with her team at the presidency and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. She has worked collaboratively with a great array of stakeholders to successfully deliver a survey, a report, data visualization, and clear call for action. But friends, today is just the start. The next stage is for this analysis to move into action and truly make a historic change in terms of poverty. I remember my first trip to Nigeria in 2019. And we found that Governor El-Rufai was keen to know and understand how the MPI data would help him identify priority areas for funding that were reflecting the particular shape poverty took in northern versus southern Kaduna. It's that insistent curiosity, strategic vision, passion, and committed creativity, including by new friends joining us for the first time today, that will carry this work to its final aim, namely ending impoverishment for millions of Nigerians. So when we update the Nigeria MPI next time, we see a historic change. Thank you so much.
Oxford Poverty and Development Initiative, a document that will help planning and execution and implementation of poverty alleviation. At this point, Your Excellencies, all very, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the podium the representative of the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Dr. Zainab S. Ahmed, who also watches over what we are doing in terms of his own calling in our government, the Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Ikanade Agba, who will now give us the opening remarks. Okay, all right. Well, I'm getting too many, so I've been told, because this is his purview, which I know, so he's giving his own remarks in his own person as the Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Ikanade Agba. Let's welcome him all, please.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, here ably represented by my elder brother, a prince, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Chief of Staff. I would like to stand on the already very well established protocols. But then, I would also like to recognize an elder brother. He came out a while ago to speak, Professor Ode Ojowu. I've learned quite a lot from him. And Matthias, see, when I speak about integrated rural development and talk about the vulnerable, the farmers and all of that, that inspiration really comes from Professor Ode Ojowu. It is a great delight to be present here for the launch of the report of this important survey, the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey. This is really a significant achievement for Nigeria, as we are one of the first countries in Africa to conduct this exercise as a standalone survey with this level of disaggregation. So I say big congratulations to the National Bureau of Statistics and the entire Nigerian statistical system for recording this feat. I must congratulate His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, for his visionary leadership by setting the presidential mandate to lift 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years. This vision was the catalyst for the implementation of the Multidimensional Poverty Index, MPI, which survey findings were gathered here today to launch. The journey to today began during the first phase of the implementation of the National Social Investment Program under the office of His Excellency the Vice President. This was a program oversighted then by the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. It was concerning, however, that in spite of the program successfully empowering more than 5 million persons, the poverty narrative about Nigerians seemed not to have changed. This necessitated the examination of poverty beyond monetary terms to considering how deprivations in different sectors contribute to this narrative. Monetary poverty figures show that pre-COVID of Nigeria's over 200 million population, approximately 82.9 million, that is 40.1%, were income poor. However, multidimensionally, a higher 50% were identified as poor, while 51% experienced intense poverty in education, health, energy, water, access, and other living standard indicators. Unfortunately, this information as provided in the 2018 Global MPI conducted across 50 countries does not provide sub-national data that should trigger responsive action. Hence, beyond pondering why the country's poverty narrative has not changed, in spite of the huge government funding, we are conducting a sub-national MPI survey across, we conducted a sub-national MPI survey across the 109 senatorial districts to investigate at granular level why there is a disconnect between available social welfare opportunities and its uptake, identify which sector, state, senatorial district, and groups of persons with poverty incidences, and then use the data to nudge for behavioral changes that will lead to increase in uptake, influence design and implementation of projects, and also use as policy tool for targeted resource allocation. The official flag-off of the survey took place in August 2021, with the first sub-national MPI survey being completed in February 2022. And in January 2022, I led a team of high-level partners to formally brief His Excellency, the Vice President, on the MPI. I must pause at this junction to specially recognize Professor Sabina Alkere, Director of OPHI. She just spoke to us a while ago for her support at the meeting, with the invitation extended to His Excellency Juan Manuel Santos, former President of Colombia, who joined virtually and contributed to the successful outcome of the meeting. Given the journey so far, it is with eager anticipation I have looked forward to this day, a day when we get to share the behind-the-scenes collaboration of federal and the sub-national, inter-MDA partnerships, engagements with international development partners and multilateral organizations. These concerted efforts culminated in the confidence we repose in the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index survey findings, which we are publishing today. The 2022 Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index is not just another poverty measurement tool, but one useful for influencing policies. This report provides a more comprehensive view of poverty by not only revealing who is poor, but in what way and to what degree of intensity, turning it into a very practical resource for addressing the problem of poverty in all its forms and dimensions. Since the advent of COVID-19 pandemic, which has reversed some of the gains made by this administration, particularly in the areas of healthcare and educational development, the government has been making significant efforts to address these setbacks and put the country back on a sound footing for long-term economic and social prosperity. This is no small task given the myriad of issues the government is grappling with, domestically and internationally. The National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, launched by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, highlights several areas of priority where the administration is focusing to reverse these setbacks and achieve the poverty reduction objectives. The plan, which is a medium-term blueprint designed to unlock the country's potentials in all sectors of the economy for a sustainable, holistic, and inclusive national development, lays significant emphasis on human capital and social development. Specifically, the plan aims to generate 21 million full-time jobs and lift 35 million people out of poverty by the year 2025, thus setting the stage for achieving the government's commitment of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. The 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index survey results therefore equips us with valuable information available for the first time in our country to adequately and judiciously utilize in designing and implementing more efficient policies and programs that effectively addresses poverty in a multidimensional way. The uniqueness of the report, which presents new and updated information for urban and rural areas at the levels of zones, states, and senatorial districts, makes it the richest household level data sources available to policymakers in recent times. In a federal system such as ours, it is vital to understand the level of poverty by state and regions, but also how the composition of this poverty by state and regions, but also how the composition of this poverty varies across them. The 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey reveals how poverty levels across the state vary significantly, with the incidence of multidimensional poverty ranging from as low as 27% in Ondo State to as high as 91% in Sokoto State. The set of deprivations also vary quite widely between states with similar poverty levels. For instance, in Ondo, education and housing-related deprivations contribute more to multidimensional poverty than in Lagos, where food security, unemployment, and shocks contribute more. So using the MPI beyond measurements, but as a policy, allows to tailor interventions according to the deprivation profiles of each state, making them more efficient by making data-driven and evidence-based policies that will result in greater impact. This is how valuable and useful this powerful tool can be when deployed objectively. It can be a real game changer in the lives of citizens, just as we have seen in other countries that have utilized it, such as Colombia and Mexico. Mexico reduced its MPI by a quarter within a span of 10 years. And Colombia and India cut their national MPI in half within a decade. To reassure of government's commitment with transparency and with the utilization of the MPI for policy following this national launch, there will be a series of other activities aimed at sensitizing the public on the production and the use of the data. There will be zonal dissemination of the results in all the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The Poverty Dashboard Situation Room headquartered at the National Bureau of Statistics will be commissioned soon. Hopefully, I think I should do that tomorrow. This poverty situation room is part of the data demand and use strategy of the MPI, which houses more detailed information about the survey results, as well as other relevant and available welfare-related information. The idea is to have a data hub of poverty and welfare information with different features, where policy discussions can be hosted and members of the public can access to gain more knowledge and understanding on concepts and methods on how poverty measurements are done and how the data can be applied in practice. Furthermore, the implementation of the data demand and use includes the deployment of the National Poverty Map, which presents the survey findings in a user-friendly manner, comprehensible for a wide range of stakeholders, the public, researchers, policy analysts, private sector, and the academia. On the map, you will see disaggregated data displayed in charts and maps, with the opportunity to compare across regions, states, and different groups. The activities of the data demand and use strategy also include collaboration with the Policy Innovation Unit of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. They are supporting to conduct further research on the current findings and extending these to subgroups that were hitherto not included within the survey. Specifically, detailed analysis is being conducted to collect more gender disaggregation, understand the deprivations within the correctional system and the internally displaced persons camps across the Federation. Additionally, to ensure the sustainability of this new multidimensional way of addressing poverty, the MPI has been adopted as the key policy tool and measurement method, complementing income-based measurement for poverty within the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. At the Ministry of Finance, Budget, and National Planning, we will continue to play our oversight role as the government's institution tasked with policy and project designs, as well as the monitoring and evaluation of projects. In this context, the MPI will be used to systematically track progress against the Sustainable Development Goal 1 and included in the next voluntary national review on the reduction of poverty in all its forms and dimensions across all of Nigeria. I must commend His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, for his commitment and passion towards elevating the lives of the poor in our society. There is no doubt that when the story of the administration is written, one thing that will clearly stand out is the massive investment made by Mr. President in improving the living standards of the Nigerian citizens, not by words only, but by committing actual resources to see to its realization. I also want to commend my sister, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Mrs. Shamsuna Ahmed, for her active and prominent role in supporting Mr. President to achieve this laudable vision. Even under very challenging economic conditions and competing priorities, history will remember her very kindly. I would like to end this note by congratulating the Statistician General, Prince Samuel Adeyemi Adeniran, under whose leadership this survey was successfully conducted, and to the National Coordinator of the MPI, Shola Afolayan, who remained focused, galvanizing efforts to ensure buy-in and ownership of the process by all stakeholders. Let me likewise express our profound gratitude to the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative at the University of Oxford for their technical assistance, and to other partners that offered support. The delegation of the European Union, the Global Affairs Canada, the United Nations Development Programme, the United Nations Children's Fund, and the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. I thank you all for your kind attention. God bless you. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
I congratulate you also, Minister of State, for national planning and budgets, and I think he deserves a very loud round of applause. It's not easy to dust up the dirt, and this is what he has done very boldly. Congratulations. As we look forward to making it an implementable, actionable, material, strategic tool for alleviating poverty in Nigeria, I do know that from discussions that have been on this week, that of course is a multi-dimensional approach that is needed, not just in terms of government, but also in terms of the private sector, who also have a lot to do going forward. We'll watch a short documentary now before we get to the climax of today's opening. Can we please have the documentary on?
Nigeria, the most populous country on the African continent and the 7th largest in the world, is an artwork of distinctive regions with a current population of over 200 million people. The United Nations forecasts that the population will double by 2050, making it the 3rd largest country in the world. Given Nigeria's size and growth potential, the pressure to safeguard and improve the lives of its citizens is greater than ever.
The flood affects us well because now, no place to stay, no food to eat, even no water to bathe. This is hard.
For a year, there is no primary health care now.
Sunana Muhammad Sani, aiki na noma, ina da mata guda biyu, ina da ɗiyana guda 8, yara na 4 kamar makaranta.
At times the transformers will have fault, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Babu makarantar secondary school, ina da yaran da suka gama primary za su tafi secondary school. To dole ne yanzu ya zama ina kai su cikin gari ne suke karatu. Gaskiya daga nan ya kai kilomita 7 zuwa 8.
The drinking water, before now, we use our tap, but the tap has been polluted.
I need money for my business. Truly, I'm a petty trader. I sell baby things, but just little. I don't have much money.
The National Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey is a collaborative effort between the National Bureau of Statistics and ministry, department, and agencies of government, as well as development partners. This survey was conducted across the senatorial district within the state of the Federation and touching at the local government in each of the states of the Federation.
We have gone to 109 senatorial districts to hear from the people, to capture real-time, on-time data, to understand the intensity of the deprivations that people face in a multi-dimensional way.
In 2015, global poverty statistics projected a steady descent into poverty. These issues were addressed by launching 2 key intervention initiatives. First was the National Social Protection Policy, which serves as the guidebook for addressing inequalities, and the National Social Safety Nets Project, NASSP, which has in its custody the largest number of identified poor and vulnerable households in Nigeria. That is, the National Social Register, NSR, with 12.8 million households, equivalent to 52 million individuals. Through the years, the government has intensified its commitment towards eradicating extreme poverty in Nigeria with precise guidance from the Rapid Response Register data collated by the National Social Register. The RRR, which is a sub-registry of the NSR, was created to stall the further decline into poverty as a result of the COVID pandemic. As of September 30th, 2022, it had registered about 6.8 million people. These registers were used as the basis to identify beneficiaries of the various interventions during the pandemic. In 2021, the Federal Executive Council, FEC, approved the launch of the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy, NPRGS, a 10-year program scheme positioned to accelerate the reduction in poverty through economic growth and social protection programs. The 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index, Nigeria, shows a frontline effort at creating an evidence-based data demand and use strategy for achieving the presidential mandate of lifting 100 million out of poverty in a decade. The MPI brings many concerns together into one headline measure to ensure sustainability. The MPI has since been adopted as the national measure for poverty that complements income-based measures. In August 2019, the President of Nigeria committed to empowering an additional 100 million people to escape extreme poverty by 2030.
The high level of income poverty, which is currently at 40%, and multidimensional poverty, which is currently at 63%, are indicative of the challenges of removing millions of Nigerians out of poverty. This is why President Buhari's initiative of removing 100 million Nigerians out of poverty is timely and needed.
The National Multidimensional Poverty Index for Nigeria looks at 15 deprivations across the 4 dimensions of health, education, living standards and working shocks, and shows who are the people living in households that are affected by many of these deprivations at the same time.
The governors in the different geopolitical regions, having known the kind of poverty that exists in their area, will be able to make the appropriate budgetary provisions to deal with those issues.
The MPI really is a metaphor for collaboration, partnership, and change.
For UNDP, the MPI report will help with evidence-based decision on poverty reduction, which aligns with our very core mandate.
We hope that this will spur states to dig better and deeper into local government disaggregated data to target and support more and in an effective manner at the state level.
the National Bureau of Statistics, we continue to strive hard to provide high-quality data with best technology, best practices that meet international standards, so that the data can not only be used within the country, but can compare relatively well with data from other countries across the globe.
The government has not relented in its effort to combating this poverty. They have created poverty alleviation schemes and youth empowerment programs such as You Win, Empower, among others, and encouraging young entrepreneurs in a bid to reduce and eliminate poverty. And in partnership with various international and private sector stakeholders, the Nigerian government has spearheaded various initiative programs such as the Nigerian Jubilee Fellows Program, the Regional Stabilization Facility Program, and many more. From this MPI report, some key recommendations have been outlined, such as the national MPI should be regularly updated using an appropriate survey vehicle. State governors should be encouraged and provided with the capacity to adopt MPI data for budgetary and planning purposes. Incorporate the national MPI into medium and long-term strategies. Many more have been outlined in the 2022 MPI report. With the government's persistence in implementing these policies and more, we believe that the aim of alleviating poverty in Nigeria would be achieved in the nearest future as we continue to be the giant of Africa.
Giant of Africa. All these indicators, as specified with this short video, has shown that the narrative must change, implementation must be real, moving forward to alleviate poverty in Nigeria. I'd like to stand out one of our guests before we have we get to the climax. I'm sure he's sitting at the edge of his chair. All he's thinking about is the World Cup. And I hope the World Cup will be part of what will reduce poverty globally. Well, the Deputy Ambassador of Qatar said to me that all is set, for the World Cup. So I hope all is also set for the implementation of what we are about to watch. For me, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has always been in the forefront of poverty alleviation. Even, I remember all the intervention he chaired with the Petroleum Task Force. Today, they are still relevant. Today, the PTF intervention still speaks to poverty alleviation. Standing in for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a man who is very special to a lot of us. We call him a teacher of teachers, a consummate administrator and diplomat of great standing. But more importantly, we call him global peacemaker, knowing what he has done across all the continent in bringing peace to states and ensuring that peace exists. He has, for us, particularly, if I may just let this out, for us in Kwara State, he's a son that we're very proud of. His home, when he was lecturer at the Ahmadu Bello University, was a convergence of where you went. It was the home for everyone. And we as women used to think that how was his wife coping with the numerous Kwara ABU students converging at his place. We're saying to him he must give us a memoir. And he has promised that he will do that. Prof, we are still waiting. And so today, a journey that started with the president more than 35 years ago, about 38 years ago with the president, is what has culminated into what we are witnessing today that has made him the chief of staff to Mr. President. I was just told before I took the microphone on that we also have Professor Doyin Salami, Chief Economic Advisor to Mr. President, that he's around. Would you like to take a bow, sir, wherever you are? Thank you. Thank you. Right. So, for me at this moment, are we set? Are we set? On your behalf, Your Excellencies all, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me my brother and Chief of Staff to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Ibrahim Agbola Gambari.
Please sit down. The Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, my very own brother, Prince Clem Ikanade Agba, the Chairman of the Governing Board of MBS, Dr. Kabir Nakaura, whom I've been associated with closely since 1984, with some long break in between, the Statistician General of the Federation and the Chief Executive Officer of NBS, Prince Adeyemi Adeniran. I also want to recognize, of course, my friend and former colleague at the Ahmadu Bello University, Professor Ode Ojowu, who is also a member of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council and a farmer. I think he would like to be known more about that and his activities in that regard. I also hear that the Chief Economic Advisor to the President, Professor Doyin Salami, is in the other. Where is he? Is he always hiding somewhere? Please show yourself. He's waving his hands. Because the United Nations Resident Coordinator, my friend, Matthias for short, the representative of the UNICEF in Nigeria, the Oxford Poverty and Development Initiative, whose representative we just saw a couple of minutes ago, His Excellency the High Commissioner of Canada to Nigeria, Ambassador James Christophe, the EU representative of the head of delegation, represented at him by Cecil Tassin Pelsi, with whom I was in Mafa in Borno State not long ago to launch accommodation for 842, along with Honorable Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, to give hope to IDPs by providing accommodation, social services, and means of livelihood. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Senior Special Assistant to the President for SDGs, our very own Madame Uwais, and it's good to recognize her because I also have an elder brother, and that is the retired Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Uwais, of whom Madame Uwais is, of course, the spouse. Permanent secretaries and senior government officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends. I stand here on behalf of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari to deliver an address, a keynote address, as well as do the honors of officially launching the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index MPI report today. And I agree, by way of digression, with Professor Ode Ojowu that these reports, the results, are not ends by themselves, by no means, but they are really a call for action and a call for targeted action in many dimensions. This is a report that pinpoints the level of deprivations and its intensity that confronts our citizens, all of them. Beyond this, it also provides substantive evidence of the positive impact of the multi-sectoral interventions of the Buhari administration, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, which also demonstrated our commitment to eradicating extreme poverty in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, partners, and friends of Nigeria, we are acutely aware of the global climate as well as the environmental catastrophes, food and fuel crisis, inflation, and austerity measures exacerbated by political and civil tensions and the huge weight of COVID-19 pandemic. In times as this, it will be easy to become faint-hearted. It will be easy to turn away from the poorest and the most vulnerable among us because resources are scarce and a multitude of competing priorities call for our attention. However, today, as we gather to launch this report, this Multidimensional Poverty Index report, and when I say I, please substitute President Muhammadu Buhari, reaffirm our commitment to the first goal of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is eradicating poverty in all its dimensions. You have heard directly from the people as captured in the documentary which you have just seen, our collective triumphs and challenges in understanding and untangling the interlinked deprivations that the most vulnerable among us experience. But you also evidence of hope and a determination to move away from extreme deprivation and enjoy the benefit with the resources, the enormous resources, both human and material, with which this country is endowed. We have also heard, as shared by the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, as well as by partners, the endless possibilities of the transformative ways in which data from the MPI could be used for effective and impactful multi-sectoral policies to accelerate our efforts. It is my hope that with the report being launched today, every stakeholder will rise to the challenge, providing needed political leadership, strategic vision, and creative hard work to move the needle towards the eradication of extreme poverty in Nigeria. In 2019, as a government, we made a commitment to deploy the use of MPI in understanding poverty issues across multiple dimensions. This was at the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, where the federal government announced the adoption of this global poverty measurement and methodology aimed at tracking the presidential 100 million plus out of poverty mandate. Subsequently, the developers of the MPA, the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, OPHI, were invited to Nigeria in November of the same year to discuss the modalities of translating this into concrete actions and measurables. In 2020, a year later, with the emergence of COVID-19, the economic fallout for Nigeria was particularly severe, with visible pressures on the federal budget. What started as a health crisis with grave impact on population, also within months, metamorphosed into a real socio-economic crisis across the world and impacting on Nigeria. The health crisis had real impact on education and on food security, disrupted the large-scale humanitarian response to the conflict in the Northeast, and set back already complex and strained human development efforts. Given the multidimensional impact of the pandemic and the challenge to protect the health of citizens, especially the most vulnerable among them, while at the same time guaranteeing sustainable recovery of national economies, livelihood, and well-being after the crisis. The National Bureau of Statistics was commissioned to carry out a subnational senatorial level MPI survey nationwide. It is for the success of this report that we are here today officially to launch the findings of the report. This multidimensional way of understanding poverty has been helpful in highlighting beyond monetary income-based poverty measurement, the stark realities of poverty in each state and across the 109 senatorial districts. According to the report, the incidence of monetary poverty is lower than the incidence of multidimensional poverty across most states, where 40.1% of people are poor, according to the 2018-2019 National Monetary Poverty Line. But 63%, a big jump, are multidimensionally poor, according to the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index MPI report. Furthermore, this report shows that multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas, where 72% are poor compared to 42% of people in the urban area. So that we see that poverty as a phase of rural origin, nature, and also, as we soon see subsequently, the face of women. Globally, people that are most vulnerable to poverty are very often women and children. It is therefore commendable to see that this report also includes child poverty numbers. Children are a strategic population of concern, as nearly half of all Nigerians are children under the age of 18. Two-thirds, that's 67.5% of children aged 0 to 17 are poor, according to the national MPI, and half, 51% of all poor people are children. So poverty as the face of rural, as the face of women, and of the face of children. This government, the Buhari administration, recognizes the importance of the data and the need to deploy it in sharing your story to a broad spectrum of stakeholders, both domestically and internationally. One way we have started this engagement was at the recent United Nations General Assembly, where Nigeria co-hosted the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, MPPN, and shared lessons learned from some other 100 member nations. However, this is just the start. Internally, we have now deployed a comprehensive data demand and use, DDU, strategy to embed the use of evidence-based and data-driven poverty reduction mechanism. I must also pause and off the script here to say that we've come a long way. In my time, in my younger days, a few years ago, or a few decades ago, nobody wants to be surveyed. People want to be counted. And that's when, for example, if you ask a man or a woman, how many children do you have? He or she will just simply say, we thank God. Now, that can range from 1 to 20 children. But we've gone further away from that, because to address issues and to address challenges, we must know the nature and the magnitude of those challenges. And that's why this report is coming very timely, but also in advance of the national population and housing census, which will be will come on stream beginning from now until early, of course, next year. To begin this deployment of data, let me share 7 reasons why Nigeria's Multidimensional Poverty Index is a powerful tool to galvanize the kind of action that will push us forward to achieving the presidential mandate of lifting 100 million out of poverty within the next decade. First, the building blocks of Nigeria's MPA are a set of deprivations that a person experiences at the same time. They relate to dimensions like health, education, living standards, work, and security. And therefore, the MPI brings under one roof different Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, indicators, and forms of poverty, so that we can break silos and address them together and comprehensively. Secondly, Nigeria is, of course, as we know, a large and diverse country. Using the disaggregation to show the vast range in the level of poverty, we can see the precise needs of each state and senatorial district, which will allow policymakers at that level to take appropriate action. And I was hoping that actually in this audience, we'll see representatives of state government and even local government. But nonetheless, I'm sure with the publication of this report, the story will be communicated and disseminated widely across all the states of the Federation, all the geopolitical zones, and even all the local governments. The third, as a post-pandemic data, this report will be integrated within the National Social Register, the government's largest data bank of the poor and the vulnerable. And we did hear a moment ago, representative of the Honorable Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development gave you an indication of what they do in updating and perfecting that register. This integration will facilitate better targeting and coordinated response for social intervention, leaving no one behind. Fourth, the MPI is embedded within the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2026 and 2026 to 2030 as a measurement and policy tool for poverty eradication. Likewise, this year, the Federal Executive Council approved the 2022-2025 National Poverty Reduction and Growth Strategy, NPRGS, under which the MPI project is being implemented. Fifth, the MPI analysis uncovers differences by gender and by children. As I mentioned briefly earlier, children are a strategic population in Nigeria. They are deeply affected by poverty, and they are indeed our future. So we are building a young child MPI. It includes the national MPI and adds in extra information about early childhood development, which is information we require in order to improve their lives and their life chances. Six, at the federal level, these results will be used to influence the allocation of resources going forward, particularly in targeting sectors where most citizens suffer deprivations. The MPI is not only data on poverty, combining the insights provided by MPI results with data from the income poverty measurement. It also provides a holistic picture of poverty and helps to shape the path towards shared prosperity. Allow me at this juncture to reiterate Mr. President's unwavering commitment to eradicating extreme poverty in Nigeria. Thus far, this has been evidenced by the official establishment of the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, NASSCO, in 2016, which is the custodian of the National Social Register, the largest repository of the poor and vulnerable in Nigeria. Likewise, we consolidated the impact made in the lives of over 5 million persons with the implementation of the National Social Investment Program, NSIP, by institutionalizing it under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development in 2019. The Federal Executive Council also just approved an executive bill to be sent to the National Assembly on the legal framework for the National Social Investment Program. Hence, we have been intentional with our plan to lift 100 million people out of poverty within 10 years, in line with the objectives of the SDGs and the African Agenda 2063. We are happy that with the MPI, will serve as both a measurement and policy tool to monitor our progress at achieving these goals. I want to recognize the efforts of the Steering Committee of the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy, NPRGs, chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, SAN, GCON, the leadership provided by the Honorable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Agba, and the commitment of the people at the National Bureau of Statistics. Lastly, but far from the least, I must thank our friends and partners at the United Nations, the UNDP, and UNICEF. I believe the UNICEF representative was here, a little Christiana. Thank you very much for coming and for participating. The High Commissioner of Canada to Nigeria, which have recognized the delegation of the European Union mission in Nigeria, the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, and also for members of the diplomatic community who have shown interest as friends of Nigeria and supporters of the program of the administration, for the support they have offered for the successful delivery of this exercise. In conclusion, Excellencies, policymakers, academics, private sector, and the media and the public to engage with the results of this survey and to urge you to find ways of utilizing the findings to support the development in your respective areas. Together, we can work to eradicate extreme poverty in Nigeria, ensuring that we leave no one behind. I thank you for your kind attention, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We would now have a public presentation of the work which is here. Yes, please. Can you please give His Excellency? Yes. Okay.
Sir.
Yes, please. Can we spread ourselves out, please, my colleagues? Please, can you join? Can you join, please? Yeah, please. Take the book. Yeah. First, I'd like our dignitaries to be on this side. Then we have Your Excellency, sir. Okay.
It is my honor, on behalf of His Excellency, the President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, it's my honor to officially launch and unveil this report. The Nigerian Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022, and to reaffirm the commitment of the Buhari administration to lifting 100 million plus Nigeria out of poverty in the next 10 years. It's doable, and of course the foundation for that is being laid in this administration and will be continued as we tend to institutionalize this program in such a way that subsequent administrations also continue its implementation. Thank you very much. And thanks to our MC who has so ably moderated this, and I knew that she doesn't forget anything, including the amala that she's eaten so many years ago in my house at the Ahmadu Bello University. Please give her a round of applause.
Move a bit because this is going to spin. But please, do you all have copies of the publication for the group photograph? We need one for Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yes. Can we just have representative of His Excellency, Mr. President, sir, with members of the development
quality, high-level quality data to government of Nigeria, to all users across board of our data. We continue to strive to see that we employ best practice, international standard for all our service.
Multidimensional Poverty Index assesses poverty at the individual level. If an individual, for instance, is deprived in a third or more of 10 weighted indicators, the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index identifies such a person as MPI poor. The extent or intensity of the person's poverty is measured through the
Chief of Staff that we have, all statisticians from the states, from the 36 states and FCT are all present here. Thank you. Directors. Only directors, please. Quickly.
of deprivations he or she is experiencing.
Yes.
In Nigeria, 2 additional dimensions were added.
The final photo ops will be from the presidency,
which complement traditional
Mrs. Owais,
measures by capturing the acute deprivations in health, education, and living standards that a person faces simultaneously.
It gives you a more robust and comprehensive way of looking at poverty that people suffer, or deprivation that people suffer in the country. So it's a robust way, and it's a measure that helps government to allocate resources to areas where poverty can be addressed once and for all.
The MPAI tool is it's a very interesting one, and like you know, it's data driven. It tells us who's poor, how poor the person is, why is the person poor, and to what degree that person is poor. It also dimensions where poverty really is in the country. Like we always say, that a problem that is known is already half solved. So once we know that poverty has multiple dimensions, and you know the various dimensions of this poverty, then you know how to take care of it.
The key results from the National 2022 MPI are: the national MPI is 0.257, showing that poor people in Nigeria experience just over 1/4 of all possible deprivations. Multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas, where 72% of people are poor compared to 42% of people in urban areas. Poverty levels across states vary significantly, with the proportion of the incident population living in multidimensional poverty ranging from a low of 27% in Ondo to a high of 91% in Sokoto, so interventions should be tailored to the deprivation profiles of each state. Patterns of poverty also vary within states, with representative results available at the senatorial district level. In Kano State, for instance, the proportion of people who are poor ranges from 50% in Kano Central to 77% in Kano South. The poorest states are Sokoto, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Kebbi, Gombe, and Yobe. Priorities vary quite widely between states. In general, the incidence of monetary poverty is lower than the incidence of multidimensional poverty across most states. In total, 29% of all school-aged children are not attending school. This is closely linked to multidimensional poverty because 94% of all out-of-school children are poor.
We have data that has given an eye-opener to all the areas that has been making people to wallow in poverty. If the figure, the data, if they are not there, is another thing. But now we have it. It is now left for government at federal, state, and even local government and senatorial level to make use of this data, to plan their budget, to allocate their resources such that by the next survey of MPR that we are going to conduct, we'll be able to see that government is really moving in the right direction to address the issue of poverty in the country. Using the data is what is key.
A household is considered multidimensionally poor if it is deprived of more than 1/4 of the weighted indicators. Arriving at the multidimensional poverty index has been an enormous task amidst uncertainties, but the team put together by the National Bureau of Statistics working with partners weathered.
It will afford us the opportunity to, advise the state government on policies and programs to address the issue of poverty in the state.
You don't step out, you will not know the real.
Nakaura, we'll have the closing remarks from you, sir, after this photo op. I think you should be in this picture. Please, lunch is served. You'll be directed to where lunch will be served. The invited media members should kindly move to NBS headquarters after this event for the kickstart of African Statistics Day celebrations. Yes, our chairman will now give the closing remarks. Closing remarks, sir. This has to go up, yes.
Can we take this back?
Can you take it up?
How? I don't know.
Event is not over yet. Can we have one house, please? Can we all be seated and be quiet? Can we please, can I have some quiet on this side of the hall? Yes, Chairman, sir, you have the floor.
Hello. Well, can we be seated, please? Can we have one house, please? Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Chief of Staff, His Excellency Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari, Your Excellency and Honorable Minister, Budget National Planning, all protocol observed because of the time. We are all tired, so definitely just go to screen. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and the privilege to deliver the closing remarks for this event, which is officially launch of the 22 National Multidimensional Poverty Index Survey. Today, indeed, is a very proud day for the National Statistical System, of which, as the chairman of MBS, I am the chairman National Statistical System of the country. and the country at large. I sincerely wish to commend everyone who has contributed in one way or the other to make this launch possible. First and foremost, I would like to appreciate our special guest of honor, the President, ably represented by the Chief of Staff to the President of the Nigeria. I wish to acknowledge appreciate our supervising ministers, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget, National Planning, and the Minister of State, Budget, National Planning, for taking out time for their busy schedule. Well, they're not only for this because it's their ministry, so they're not for taking their schedule. I don't know why he wrote this one. Because they have to take out their schedule, because it's part of their ministry. They are who has a ministry, so they must be here. I also wish to thank all our main collaborators on the exercise, that is the National Society Safety Net, the Federal Minister of Human Affairs, the Honorable Minister for leadership, and the acting coordinator for the support. Similarly, my sincere appreciation also goes to all the other ministers, permanent secretaries, directly and the representatives of the Federal Minister and department agencies who have honored our invitation to this event. Your presence shows your strong commitment and the understanding of the importance. I wish also to express my profound gratitude and appreciation to all the development partners and international organizations who have supported this operation. I also wish to thank and recognize all participants from the states, particularly the state statistician generals and the directors of statistics from states. Because as we say, when you launch it here in Abuja, we want it to go down to the place. So your contribution is very important, and you will have to take it down to the grassroots. We thank you very much for that. I will not fail to appreciate the media for their support, because once you did something, unless it is emanated to the people, they will not understand it. So media is a very important aspect of any development, because even whatever you do, unless the media says it, you will not know, and people will not do it. So people will have to understand, so we appreciate their support and engagement. Finally, let me thank the management and staff of National Bureau of Statistics and the leadership of the State Statistician General, Prince Edmi Adenano. Congratulations, because unless you give us the data, we will not be able to get it. So whatever you want to do, there must be data. No development can do without a data. So we thank the management very well, and I can't, as the chairman, sleep with my two eyes closed because the executive general is there. Yes, so thank you very much for that. As we all know, the real value of data is in the application and the use. You have to use the data, because when you have the data, unless it is used, it's no use. It will just become a paper. So you must use it so that people can use it in developing the same thing. Without data, you can't develop. Without development, you can't give dividend or democracy. So definitely data is very important, and we want people to use them, because once it is inside anywhere, without you using it, it becomes just a paper. So please, we want anybody can use it, from the individual to the organization to the government. Data is very important. So therefore, I urge everyone here present to engage with the data and apply it to your daily work, and also in doing so we'll stand a better chance to do it. Thank you very much for the attention and the safe journey back to yourself. Good morning. God bless you.
Thank you very much. While the chairman returns to his seat, may I please ask that we all stand for the national anthem. May I request that we all remain standing while the Chief of Staff and members of the VIP team leaves us. But please, members of the Nigerian media that have been invited have been asked to quickly go to the headquarters of NBS, where the world celebration of the World Statistics Day will take place. We thank you all and have a wonderful day in Abuja, but think of what you can do to reduce poverty in Nigeria. Thank you.
The National Bureau of Statistics is committed to continue to give quality, high-level quality data to government of Nigeria, to all users across board of our data. We continue to strive to see that we employ best practice, international standard for all our services.
Multidimensional Poverty Index assesses poverty at the individual
Okay,
level.
lunch is served. Please find out where you are to eat and enjoy your meal.
The Multidimensional Poverty Index identifies such a person as MPI poor. The extent or intensity of the person's poverty is measured through the percentage of deprivations he or she is experiencing. In Nigeria, 2 additional dimensions were added to the global ones, that is, works and shocks and security, which complement traditional monetary poverty measures by capturing the acute deprivations in health, education, and living standards that a person faces simultaneously.
It gives you a more robust and comprehensive way of looking at poverty that people suffer, or deprivation that people suffer in the country. So it's a robust way, and it's a measure that helps government to allocate resources to areas where poverty can be addressed once and for all.
The MPAI tool is a very interesting one, and like you know, it's data driven. It tells us who's poor, how poor the person is, why is the person poor, and to what degree that person is poor. It also dimensions where poverty really is in the country. Like we always say, that a problem that is known is already half solved. So once we know that poverty has multiple dimensions, and you know the various dimensions of this poverty, then you know how to take care of it.
The key results from the National 2022 MPI are: the national MPI is 0.257, showing that poor people in Nigeria experience just over 1/4 of all possible deprivations. Multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas